Tiffany Henyard has reached her lowest point and has come clean about her financial situation. Not only that, but she is openly pleading with us common people on GoFundMe, claiming that she needs the money to maintain her extravagant lifestyle. This is a very messy situation considering that she used to live like a queen on taxpayer funds, taking fancy trips and having $1 million security detail following her everywhere. To make matters worse, it has come to light that she also allegedly borrowed millions of dollars and used city infrastructure as collateral. Tiffany's creditors are attempting to collect their money, and things are not looking good for her, nor for the good people of Dalton. Before we discuss Tiffany's debts, let's discuss how she turned public funds into her personal piggy bank. What if I told you that Tiffany spent more money on welcome banners than some people in Dalton make in a year? This is beyond ridiculous. We're talking about a woman who pretended to have a blank check from the city and was not afraid to use it. Let's break it down. Tiffany spent $99,000 on a welcome banner and $119,000 on banners with her face all over them, while the average Dalton household barely makes ends meet. Talk about being out of touch. Tiffany needed to walk outside and feel how expensive it had gotten. But wait, Dalton was getting worse while she was living it up. We're talking about a place where the fire department hasn't had a contract for a whole 5 years. The town of Dalton is facing financial difficulties due to Tiffany's extravagant spending on thousands of welcome signs and her frequent trips to Vegas, which she allegedly enjoyed. To make matters worse, she had a security detail following her around, which cost the village hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Some of these officers made over $133,000 in a single pay period due to overtime, which is more than some people make in 3 or 4 years. It seems as though Tiffany forgot she was the town's leader and mistakenly believed she was a celebrity. However, Tiffany was using taxpayer funds, so the town is now unable to pay for its expenses. The company that produced the majority of the elegant welcome banners is still awaiting payment, and they are not the only ones. Tiffany didn't stop at just wasting public funds either. We're talking millions of dollars here and now. She can't pay it back. It's like she thought the money would never run out. But y'all, it always does. It looks like she's in some big trouble. They're saying Tiffany was living large and the rest of Dalton was falling apart because the police department's vehicles are at risk of being repossessed because the town can't pay its debt. Can you imagine calling 911 and finding out there's no car to come help you, but they done roll their buggies or horse and carriage or about an Uber down in your house? That's the reality Dalton is facing, all because Tiffany couldn't keep her spending in check allegedly. Y'all, if you thought that Tiffany's spending was wild, wait till you hear about her side hustle. This woman found a way to turn moldy walls into cold hard cash. How long can a mayor go? Tiffany Henyard wasn't just blowing through taxpayer money like it was nothing. No, she was out here pulling some crazy scams too, allegedly. We're talking about Section 8 housing, y'all, you know. The program that is meant to help low-income people get decent housing. Your girl Tiffany allegedly saw dollar signs and decided to cash in. But here's the thing. Tiffany owned this property, right? She was receiving sweet Section 8 subsidies from the government. But here's the kicker. This place was a complete mess. We're talking about severe mold, water damage, the whole nine. But did Tiffany care? It's allegedly not. She just kept collecting those checks as though everything was fine and dandy. By November 2019, the place was so bad it was declared uninhabitable. Now, you might be wondering how she got away with it. Well, turns out there's this thing called inspections. Let me tell you, Tiffany's property has a history of inspections that is more shadier than a palm tree on a beach. This is where things get messy. While Tiffany was preoccupied with playing the part of a slumlord, the people who rented her apartment were suffering. These are people who don't have much and are living in unlivable conditions. Meanwhile, Tiffany was pocketing government funds meant to provide these people with a decent place to live. It's sad and wrong, and this is only one part of the larger scandal surrounding Tiffany's tenure as mayor. Every time you turn over a stone, another Tiffany Henyard scandal pops up. What really gets people upset, though, is that Tiffany seems to believe she is above it all. spending taxpayer funds on lavish vacations and welcome banners while her own tenants struggle with mold and leaky ceilings. It's as though she forgot she's in charge of. You may be wondering what will happen to Tiffany, but trust me when I say that messing with the government's money like that usually doesn't work out well. We're talking about possible legal repercussions, investigations, and with everything else Tiffany has going on, this Section 8 scandal might be the final straw that brings her down. But here's the real kicker. During all of this, Tiffany continued to act as though nothing was wrong, playing the role of mayor and making decisions for Dalton, as though she could just brush it under the rug and hope no one would notice. Nevertheless, the FBI quickly became involved and began to delve deeply into Tiffany's finances. What they discovered is not pretty, and they're not sure how long before this house of cards comes tumbling down because it's getting real messy for Tiffany Henyard. Initiate a thorough criminal investigation into her financial affairs. It's amazing how Grace Tiffany went from living a lavish lifestyle to being closely watched by the federal government. Now that we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the FBI isn't just looking through Tiffany's bank statements. Instead, they're going all in. They've issued subpoenas for her personal transactions and the financial activities of the entire township. It seems like they're on a mission to find out every penny Tiffany's ever touched, and what they're finding is juicy. It turns out Tiffany wasn't just splurging on some welcome banners and Vegas trips. They're talking about lavish trips in the security detail that would make any celebrity jealous. The investigation is getting really interesting. You know who they brought in to oversee it all? Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. That's right, they've brought in the big guns, and Lori isn't messing around. She's uncovering financial mismanagement left and right under the Heard administration. It seems like every time they open a drawer, more skeletons emerge. Now that Halloween is approaching, let's see how Tiffany is holding up with all this heat. Her public image is suffering because the residents of Dalton are unhappy, demanding answers, and calling for accountability. It seems like the entire town has turned against her, but can you blame them? They trusted her to lead, and instead, she's been leading them right into a financial disaster. When Tiffany is interviewed about her alleged misconduct, it seems like everyone is eager to share what they know. The FBI is also very serious about this, and they are watching Tiffany's every move in the hopes that she will make a mistake and reveal even more. However, things are getting worse. Tiffany is trying to save her own skin by blaming her former chief, Keith Freeman, saying that she relied on him for financial decisions. It seems like she is trying to say that it wasn't me, but when you're the mayor, you can't just pass the blame and hope it goes away. However, Tiffany is taking the strategy a step too far, and instead of facing the truth, she just vanished. What's happening in Dalton without it? Jealous, this woman who's been supposed to be running Dalton has been MIA from board meetings as of late in public appearances. We're talking about 25 meetings that she's now skipped out on. Can you imagine your boss not showing up to work for that long? You'll be fired faster than you can say unemployment. But Tiffany isn't just hiding out at home binge watching Netflix. No word on the streets is she selling off her personal stuff like it's a fire sale, because she is flat broke. Looks like Miss High Roll is lifestyle is catching up with her, and now she's scraping together pennies just to keep the lights on. But mind you, back in Dalton, the town's falling apart faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. The village board got so fed up with Tiffany's no-show act, they went and appointed trust Jason House as a short-term mayor. That's right, they had to bring in a substitute because the real mayor couldn't be bothered to show up. But here's the real kicker: while Tiffany's out here playing hide and seek, the people of Dalton are left scratching their heads, wondering how they ended up with a mayor who's more interested in avoiding responsibility than facing the music. It's like they elected a magician whose final trick was making herself disappear. But this isn't a magic show, y'all. This is real life with real consequences. While Tiffany's off doing God knows what, Dalton is drowning in debt, and that holding the bag, the hardworking folks of Dalton, they're the ones stuck with the bill after Tiffany's shopping spree and fancy trips. It's as though Tiffany forgot she was elected to serve the people, not herself. Think Tiffany's taking a break from the drama? Think again. While you're trying to keep the lights on, your girls have been cooking up a whole new mess. She's not just running from her problems. Instead, she's trying to pin them on everyone else. First up on Tiffany's blame game roster is her former chief aide, Keith Freeman. She sings like a canary, telling us that he was the one pulling all the strings and that she was just a puppet. But when you're the mayor, you can't just say, "Oops, it wasn't me," and expect everyone to buy it. Freeman isn't the only one in Tiffany's crosshairs. She has lawsuits piling up faster than dirty laundry, and each one is spilling more blood. Teeth in a Boston Harbor party, we're talking about wrongful termination, retaliation, the works. It's as if she was running Dalton like her own private kingdom. And anyone who didn't fit in got the X1. Former HR manager claims she was fired for refusing to conceal public records. Another employee claims he was fired for refusing to comply with a plan to replace a school attorney. It's as if working for Tiffany was a game of do what I say or hit the highway. But it got even messier. Tiffany wasn't just bullying her employees. No, she was allegedly going after business owners who didn't donate to one of Tiffany's events. Talk about a shakedown. Now remember, all that money Tiffany was throwing around, turns out to be a lot of it wasn't even hers to begin with. She was borrowing it left. And right now, those chickens are definitely coming home to roost, and they want that money. People are filing lawsuits left and right trying to get their money back. It's like Tiffany thought she was running a Ponzi scheme instead of a town. But here's where it gets really wild. Tiffany didn't just borrow money from people. No, she went and used city infrastructure as collateral. That's right. She put up public property to secure her loans, which is crazy to think because the infrastructures weren't hers to begin with. And now those creditors are knocking on Dolan's door, looking to seize the infrastructure to get their money back. And all this mess has got the Fed sniffing, and Tiffany's old pal Keith Freeman, well, he's ready to tell and bear it all to the investigators. Looks like Tiffany's plan to throw him under the bus just backfired because Freeman is allegedly cooperating. And who knows what other skeletons might come dancing out of Tiffany's closet wearing her designer clothes. Y'all, just when you thought that Tiffany couldn't sink any lower, she's the woman who was throwing taxpayer money around like it was confetti has gone and pulled off the most desperate move yet. She created a GoFundMe page for herself, and now everyone is bracing themselves because your girl is shaking the table. Can you believe the nerve of this lady? After all that lavish spending, the fancy trips, the security detail fit for a queen, Tiffany's now asking regular folks to open their wallets for her needs to try and get a refund for her $119,000 welcome banners and her Vegas getaways. Let me tell you, the people are not just mad at her, they are laughing at her. How did she go from living large like Kim Kardashian to asking for handouts? How did she go from living large like Kim Kardashian to asking for handouts? How did she even consider investing, saving, or even putting that money under her mattress? It's almost as if she forgot about all that mess she left behind and thought folks were just lying to give her more money. You might be wondering, is this GoFundMe thing for real? Is Tiffany really that broke? Or is this just another one of our schemes? Cause let's be real, this woman's got a track record for pulling fast ones. Talk about a hustler now. Some folks are saying this is just Tiffany's way of trying to scam the public one last time before she disappears again. They're thinking she'll collect whatever money she can, and then poof, she'll be gone faster than you can say, "Where is the mayor?" But you know what, they might be onto something, cause think about it, Tiffany's been MIA for how long now? Allegedly, she's been about 25 board meetings and sold off her personal stuff, and now she's begging for money online. It looks like she's ready to skip town and leave Dalton holding the bag again. But now the people are scratching their heads like, how did Tiffany go from living like a Kardashian to send up the GoFundMe that fast? It's like she went from pennies to pals overnight, and folks I'm beginning to wonder if there's more to this story than meets the eye. Some claim that Tiffany is using this "gun me son" as a ploy to win sympathy by playing the victim and hoping that people will forget about all the shady things she's been up to. However, let's not forget that Dalton is still drowning, and that while Tiffany is out there trying to raise sympathy money, the police department's cars are about to be repossessed, the fire department hasn't had a contract in years, and the town's credit shot. But sure, Tiffany tells us again how you need their money. It's as though Tiffany is living in a bubble where her actions have no repercussions because she has spent years treating Dalton like her personal piggy bank. Now that everything is falling apart, she believes she can just ask for a do-over. People are starting to wonder, is this GoFundMe thing Tiffany's way of trying to pay back all the money she owes? Cause remember, she's got creditors coming after her left and right. Or is this just her trying to fund her next disappearing act? Let's be real, Tiffany's got a talent for vanishing when things get tough. But the wildest part about this is that even after all this mess she's made, she's managed to raise about $155,000 for her GoFundMe. Turns out some folks are still falling for her act. Y'all must be made of money, cause ain't no way she need to do a talent show. She need to do something to get this money back. But let's be real, $155,000 is not going to make a dent in the millions that Tiffany owes. It's like trying to put out a wildfire with a water pistol. And while she's busy collecting pennies online, the people of Dalton are still dealing with the fallout from her reign. And you know the fans have been all over it. They believe in comments saying she seems to be arrogant and into the lavish lifestyle. True leaders don't talk down to people. Instead, they elevate others. Her ego is so inflated that someone needs to pop it for her. She checks so many diversity boxes that anyone who believes the federal government will stop her is crazy. Oh, and she's a Democrat as well. This is how Black privilege looks like. She knows that as a Black woman, she is in a special protected class and has already embezzled what appears to be millions of dollars. It's so crazy that I'm not sure if these people are setting Tiffany up or if Tiffany is truly doing the most. Theodore Blackwell, born in 1970, came from old money. His family's wealth was amassed through shrewd investments and political connections, affording him a life of privilege. Despite this, Theodore was determined to make his own mark on the world and attended Harvard Business School, where he honed his natural talent for strategy and networking. Their paths crossed in the summer of 1997 at a finance conference in New York City. Abigail, fresh out of college and working as a junior analyst at a prestigious firm, was immediately drawn to Theodore's confidence and charm. Theodore, in turn, was enthralled with Abigail's sharp wit and ambition. Their whirlwind romance started with a late-night conversation about market trends and ended with a sunrise walk through Central Park. Within a year, they were engaged, and their fall 1998 wedding was the season's biggest social event. Theodore's business acumen, coupled with Abigail's financial expertise, made them a formidable power couple. They settled in Ashbury, where Theodore launched his consulting firm, with Abigail serving as CFO. During their early years of marriage, they enjoyed success and happiness as their business grew quickly, drawing in high-profile clients and earning a reputation for creative solutions. Abigail and Theodore's complementary skills helped the company reach new heights. They became fixtures in Ashbury's social scene, throwing extravagant parties and generously supporting both local charities and the Blackwells. Look to have it all: a successful business, a lovely home, and a strong, loving partnership. Friends and acquaintances frequently commented on their apparent devotion to one another, citing the longing looks and tender touches they shared even after years of marriage. Little did anyone know, though, that beneath this facade of marital bliss, seeds of betrayal had already been planted, waiting for the right moment to sprout and ultimately destroy everything they had built together. The cracks in the Blackwell's flawless facade began to show in the spring of 2006. Abigail, who had always taken great pride in her intuition, started to notice subtle changes in Theodore's behavior. Late nights at the office became more frequent, and his explanations grew more evasive. Adorable gestures that had once seemed so natural between them now seemed forced and puerile. Driven by a knowing suspicion, Abigail began to pay closer attention to. Despite her mounting anxiety, Abigail remained composed and refused to confront Theodore without further proof. On a sobby Tuesday afternoon in April, when Theodore had left his laptop at home in a hurry to get to a meeting, a notification appeared on the screen. An email from an unknown address with the subject line, "Can't wait to see you tonight, my love," with trembling hands. Abigail opened the message and felt her entire world crumble. It was from Veronica Dequa, a French art dealer Theodore had met at a business conference in Paris the previous year. The message described their ongoing affair in explicit detail, leaving no room for suspicion regarding the seriousness of their relationship. Intimate photos that were attached to the evidence of her husband's infidelity further twisted Abigail's heart. As she sat there, staring at the unmistakable proof of her husband's infidelity, she felt a whirlwind of emotions, from shock to anger to a deep, aching sense of betrayal. Tears streamed down her face as she remembered the years she had spent building their life together, only to have it all destroyed by Theodore's self-centered actions. However, as the initial wave of emotion subsided, a cold, calculating resolve started to take its place. Abigail realized she had a decision to make. She could confront Theodore and risk losing everything, or she could wait and plot a vengeance so thorough that it would destroy him completely. As the rain beat against their mansion's windows, Abigail Blackwell made a decision that would set in motion a series of events that would change their lives forever in the days that followed. Abigail was determined to hit Theodore where it would hurt him the most, in his pride and his wallet. She was determined to use her acting skills, which she had honed over years of navigating high society events, to present a facade of normalcy while continuing to play the role of the devoted wife. Abigail's determination only grew as she watched Theodore go about his daily life, lying with ease and taking her devotion for granted. Over dinner one evening, Theodore mentioned a potential new venture, a revolutionary financial technology platform that he believed could revolutionize the industry. His eyes gleamed with excitement as he spoke of the potential profits and prestige such a project could bring. Abigail saw her opportunity and seized it, asking insightful questions and offering enthusiastic support over the next few weeks. She used her financial expertise to subtly guide Theodore's thinking, highlighting the potential benefits of the venture and suggesting that they invest heavily in it, positioning it as a way to secure their future and leave a lasting legacy. Theodore, blinded by his own ambition and Abigail's apparent support, agreed wholeheartedly, and together they began to pour substantial resources into developing the platform. Abigail insisted on being closely involved in every aspect of the project, her desire to support Theodore's vision fully behind the scenes. But Abigail was laying the groundwork for her grand deception. She painstakingly built a network of shell companies and offshore accounts, carefully hidden beneath layers of legitimate transactions. As the company started to generate profits, Abigail implemented a sophisticated system of financial misdirection, siphoning off small amounts that would go unnoticed in the grand scheme of things to further cover her tracks. Abigail developed relationships with key players in the financial world, attended conferences, joined professional organizations, and established herself as a shrewd businesswoman in her own right. These connections would prove invaluable in the years to come, providing her with both information and potential allies. Throughout this time, Abigail maintained her composure with remarkable discipline, continuing to play the role of the supportive wife, even as she worked tirelessly to undermine everything that Theodore held dear. At times, the weight of her deception threatened to overwhelm her, but she would remind herself of the pain of Theodore's betrayal as the months passed. Abigail's secret fortune grew hidden away in accounts across the globe. She knew that her plan would take time to materialize, but she was willing to wait, as the best wine only gets better with age. Over the course of the next 10 years, the company grew from a promising startup into a financial technology giant. Theodore Black became a celebrated figure in business circles, praised for his visionary leadership and innovative approach. Abigail stood by his side at every public appearance, projecting the image of a proud and supportive wife. However, Abigail was the real architect of the company's success. Were the driving forces behind the company's most successful initiatives. She tirelessly worked to perfect her complex investment system and ensured the company's growth, which created opportunities for Abigail to divert funds. She created a labyrinth of transactions, each carefully designed to be just small enough to avoid detection, and profits were funneled through a series of intermediary companies before ending up in her secret accounts. Abigail further obscured the money trail by taking advantage of cryptocurrency and international banking laws. Theodore, caught up in the whirlwind of success and his ongoing affair with Veronica, remained blissfully unaware of Abigail's machinations. He basked in the glow of public adoration, accepting awards and giving keynote speeches at prestigious events. His ego grew proportionately. Manipulations as the years went by, Abigail's secret fortune grew to staggering proportions. She invested wisely, diversifying her hidden portfolio to include real estate, precious metals, and art. She even set up a separate identity, Evan Sinclair, complete with impeccable documentation, which she would use to manage her assets and eventually make her escape. Throughout this time, Abigail maintained her public persona with unwavering dedication. She chaired charity events, cultivated friendships with influential people, and even wrote a biography. Best-selling book on financial empowerment for women, and her reputation as a brilliant businesswoman and philanthropist grew, giving her access to a network of contacts that would prove invaluable in the future. However, leading a double life took a toll on Abigail. There were nights when she would wake up wondering if her actions were morally right, but then she would remember the look of adoration on Theodore's face when he was with Veronica, or she would overhear him planning another covert rendezvous, and her resolve would harden once more. As the company approached its 10th anniversary, Abigail knew that the time was approaching to execute the final phase of her plan. The company had reached a peak in its valuation, and market analysts were starting to wonder if its growth could be sustained. Praised in preparation for her endgame, Abigail started to quietly step back from her roles in the company and their social life. She explained that she wanted to concentrate on her charitable work and personal projects. Theodore, self-absorbed as ever, barely noticed the change. He was too busy managing his affair and upholding his public image to pay much attention to his wife's activities. As the pieces of her plan fell into place, Abigail experienced a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She had spent 13 years painstakingly crafting her revenge, and soon she would see it come to fruition. From its ashes, she would emerge reborn, wealthy beyond measure, and finally free from the bonds of her fraudulent marriage. Despite Abigail's painstaking planning and execution, there were several occasions over the years when her scheme came dangerously close to falling apart. These near-miss moments served as stark reminders of the precarious nature of her deception and forced her to constantly adapt and refine her methods. One of the most terrifying incidents happened in 2012 when the company was subjected to a routine audit by an external firm. The lead auditor, a sharp accountant named Dominic Farrell, started to ask pointed questions about certain discrepancies he had noticed in the company's financial records. Abigail's heart raced as she realized that Farrell was dangerously close to uncovering her embezzlement scheme. Thinking quickly, Abigail orchestrated a series of distractions and misdirections. This caused a delay in the audit while she worked feverishly to patch the holes in her financial smokescreen. When the audit resumed, Abigail was able to cover her tracks, but the experience left her shaken and more cautious than ever. Another complication arose in 2015 when Theodore unexpectedly decided to bring. Theodore's mistress, Veronica, began to grow dissatisfied with her role as the other woman, and in a fit of jealousy, she threatened to expose the affair to Abigail. Abigail knew that Hartley's presence posed a significant threat to her operations, so she used a multifaceted approach to neutralize this threat. She used her extensive network to gather compromising information on Hartley, which she kept as insurance. At the same time, she befriended Hartley's wife, Elaine, integrating herself into their personal lives. This allowed Abigail to subtly influence Hartley's decisions and keep him focused on areas of the business that wouldn't interfere with her plans. Perhaps the closest call came in 2017 when Veronica, Theodore's mistress, started to grow jealous of her role. Intercepted this threat, realizing that it could ruin her carefully thought-out plans. Abigail took decisive action, secretly giving Veronica proof of Theodore's other transgressions, which effectively turned Veronica against him. At the same time, she manipulated events to make Theodore believe that Veronica was becoming a liability. The result was a messy but quiet end to their affair, with Abigail's involvement remaining hidden. Each near-death experience made Abigail more and more isolated and paranoid due to the constant stress of maintaining her facade while planning her intricate revenge. But each near-death experience only made her more determined to see her plan through to the finish line. As 2019 dawned, Abigail sensed that the time had come to set the last stage of her plan in motion. Reached its pinnacle with a market valuation that surpassed even Theodore's wildest expectations. The financial world was at their feet, and Theodore's ego had never been larger. It was the ideal opportunity for Abigail to pull the rug out from under him. Over the previous few months, Abigail had been methodically transferring her hidden assets to her alter ego Evelyn Sinclair. Under this name, she had bought a remote villa in the south of France and had started the process of establishing a new life there. Every detail, from her new wardrobe to the carefully constructed backstory she would use in her new community, had been meticulously planned. In anticipation of her disappearance, Abigail started sowing doubts about the company's future prospects among key investors and industry analysts. She used her network of contacts to spread subtle rumors about potential regulatory issues and market saturation. Her goal was to create a climate of uncertainty that would. In order to worsen the chaos that would follow her disappearance, Abigail also took steps to ensure that the authorities would be led in the wrong directions during their inevitable investigation. She meticulously constructed a trail of evidence that suggested she had been embezzling money on a much smaller scale than was actually the case. This false trail would serve to divert investigators from the true scope of her scheme and muddy the waters of the financial investigation that would follow on the home front. Abigail started to emotionally distance herself from Theodore, citing stress and a need for privacy. She talked about taking a solo vacation to discover herself, setting the stage for her disappearance. Theodore, being self-absorbed, barely noticed these changes in his wife's behavior the night before her scheduled departure. Abigail allowed herself a moment of reflection. For a brief moment, she was filled with doubt about her readiness to discard designer clothes, pricey jewelry, and pictures of a happy couple that had vanished. But then she thought back to the agony of Theodore's betrayal, the years of living a lie, and the future that awaited her. With a renewed sense of resolve, she finished packing a small, discreet suitcase containing everything she would need for her new life. Everything else, including clothes, jewels, and memories, would be left behind. This was the final act of shedding her old identity. As she lay in bed for the last time next to her unconscious husband, Abigail allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Tomorrow, Abigail Blackwell would vanish, and her masterpiece of revenge would be finished. On September 15, 2019, Theodore Blackwell woke up to discover the other side of the bed empty. This in and of itself was not unusual, because Abigail was frequently an early riser. What was unusual was the silence that enveloped the house. There was no sound of the shower running, no smell of coffee brewing, and no closet doors opening. Theodore called out for Abigail, his voice resonating through the empty rooms. And as the minutes passed and his calls went unanswered, a sense of uneasiness crept over him. He checked her closet, realizing with growing alarm that some of her clothes were missing, and her favorite suitcase was gone from the attic in the kitchen. He discovered a note propped up against the coffee maker saying, "I need some time to myself. Don't try to find me." Initially, Theodore assumed Abigail had just followed through on her promise of a solo vacation. But as the hours passed and his calls to her cell phone went straight to voicemail, his concern grew. Eventually, with no word from Abigail, Theodore called the police to report her missing. Parties were planned, flyers were distributed, but the investigation was taking an unexpected turn as detectives dug into Blackwell's financial records and discovered discrepancies that were small at first but grew larger and more numerous as they delved deeper. Days passed and Abigail was nowhere to be found. The investigation's focus shifted, and Theodore Blackwell found himself at the center of a complex financial crimes investigation that was rapidly developing into a search for a missing woman. As the investigation into Abigail's disappearance intensified, Theodore Blackwell found himself faced with a barrage of questions he couldn't respond to and accusations he couldn't deny. Years of meticulous embezzlement were exposing a scheme of staggering proportions. Auditors were astounded by the complexity and duration of the fraud at first, with all fingers pointing to Abigail as the mastermind. Her position as CFO and her mysterious disappearance seemed to paint a clear picture of guilt, but as investigators dug deeper, they discovered evidence implicating Theodore as well. Signatures on important documents, authorizations for suspicious transfers, and emails discussing dubious financial strategies all bore his mark. Theodore angrily denied any knowledge of the fraud, insisting that he must have been duped by his wife. Despite this, his reputation as sterling had been destroyed. The scandal caused the company's stock price to plummet, investors fled in droves, and clients started terminating their contracts. The empire that Theodore had spent years building fell almost overnight. The stress of the situation took a toll on Theodore's health. He started experiencing anxiety attacks and insomnia. His once polished and confident appearance turned haggard, and friends and associates distanced themselves from him, making him feel more and more alone. In a desperate attempt to save his reputation, Theodore hired a well-known defense attorney and set up a press conference to present his side of the tale. Tragically, on the morning of the press conference, Theodore was found unconscious in his study, having suffered a massive heart attack. Despite the best efforts of paramedics, Theodore Blackwell was declared dead at Ashbury General Hospital, with acute myocardial infarction listed as the official cause of death. When the dust settled and the full extent of Blackwell's deception was revealed, the company was declared bankrupt, leaving hundreds of employees jobless and countless investors out of pocket. The financial technology sector was once heralded as the future of finance faced increased scrutiny and regulation. Through it all, one question remained unanswered. Where was Abigail Blackwell? Some painted Abigail as a criminal mastermind orchestrating one of the most audacious frauds in financial history, while others saw her as a victim forced to take drastic measures to escape an unfaithful husband. Conspiracy theories abounded, with some even proposing that Blackwell had finally broken due to stress from the investigation. Although the truth that Theodore's death was not due to natural causes remained unclear, it was believed that Abigail Blackwell, who had committed the ultimate disappearing act, had disappeared.